June 3, 1943, 11:47 p.m., over the Bay of Biscay. The moon hangs low and swollen, its pale light smeared across a black, restless sea. From 3,000 feet up, the Atlantic looks like cold steel, wrinkled, endless, unforgiving. Inside the aircraft, the smell of oil and warm electronics mixes with stale coffee and sweat. Engines drone at a steady, nerve-grinding pitch. This is the hour when men make mistakes. This is also the hour German U-boats believe belongs to them. At the controls sits Wing Commander Terry Bulock, Royal Air Force Coastal Command. Tall, calm, almost unsettlingly quiet. He has flown this patrol box dozens of times before. Same ocean, same darkness, same expectation from higher command. Nothing will be there. That's what they told him before takeoff. Night patrols without radar are pointless, they said. Moonlight is unreliable. Reflections lie. Shadows deceive. U-boats surface only briefly to recharge batteries, and they vanish the instant an aircraft is detected. Searching for them by moonlight alone isn't just inefficient, it's dangerous, wasteful, foolish. Bulock heard all of that and nodded. Then he flew anyway. The aircraft, a Vickers Wellington Mk-14, bristling with depth charges, rumbles forward through thin cloud. The crew knows the routine. Navigator hunched over his chart. Wireless operator listening to static that might, just might, become something more. The rear gunner stares into darkness so thick it feels solid. Bulock does not scan randomly. He watches angles. He watches contrast. He watches how moonlight slides across wavetops and how it breaks when something unnatural interrupts the pattern. This is not guesswork. It is hunting. Below them, somewhere on that steel-black surface, German submariners are doing what they've done hundreds of times before. They surface at night because night keeps them alive. Diesel engines breathe, batteries recharge, men smoke, stretch, laugh quietly. Lookouts scan the sky, but casually. The RAF has radar now. Everyone knows that. And if radar finds you, the attack comes with blinding white light at the last second. Tonight, there is no radar, which is exactly why Bulock believes this will work. At 11:59 p.m., the navigator's voice cuts through the intercom. Skipper, bearing green 27, distance uncertain. Bulock leans forward. Describe it. A shape, long, dark, breaking the reflection. The Wellington banks gently. No sudden movements, no change in engine note. To anyone below, it would look like just another patch of cloud drifting across the moon. Then Bulock sees it. A line where there should not be a line. A shadow that moves against the swell instead of with it. A conning tower cutting the moon's reflection into two imperfect halves. A surfaced U-boat. No alarms yet, no tracers, no frantic dive. The German lookouts haven't seen them. Why would they? There is no searchlight, no flare, just moonlight, and moonlight has never killed a submarine before. Bulock doesn't speak right away. He counts seconds, measures speed, judges angle. His right hand rests lightly on the control column, steady as if the aircraft were parked on the ground. Behind him, the bomb aimer is already moving, easing into position, peering through the sight as the dark shape grows larger with impossible slowness. "Hold," Bulock says softly. The Wellington glides lower. 200 feet. 100. Now the U-boat knows. A shout echoes upward, tiny, frantic. A deck gun begins to traverse, too low, too late. The conning tower hatch slams. Water churns white as the submarine tries to dive, but diesel engines are still disengaging, and momentum is not on their side. Now! Depth charges drop in a tight pattern, black shapes vanishing into silver water. The ocean erupts. A column of flame and spray punches upward, briefly brighter than the moon itself. The shock wave slams into the Wellington, rattling rivets, jolting men in their harnesses. Bulock rides it out without flinching. Below, the sea closes over the wreckage. Oil spreads across the moonlit surface like a wound. The crew exhales, but Bulock does not turn for home. He looks back to the ocean, because the moon is still high, and because somewhere out there, more shadows are breaking the pattern. What Command called impossible has just worked once, and Bulock intends to prove it wasn't luck. Wing Commander Bulock keeps his eyes on the sea. "Mark the position," he says calmly. The navigator draws a tight circle on the chart, hands still trembling slightly. One confirmed kill, at night, by moonlight alone. If this were reported back to headquarters, someone would already be preparing a list of reasons it shouldn't count. Bulock doesn't care. He adjusts course by a few degrees, not randomly, not by instinct, but by experience. U-boats do not operate alone here. The Bay of Biscay is a funnel, a killing ground where German submarines transit to and from the Atlantic. They surface along predictable lanes, spaced just far enough apart to avoid collision, close enough to provide mutual warning if one is attacked. Tonight, they feel safe. The moonlight sharpens the ocean into a vast mirror, and Bulock knows how mirrors betray what doesn't belong. Minutes stretch. The crew listens to the engines and their own breathing. The rear gunner mutters something about the cold. Somewhere below, waves slap against steel hulls, but the sound never reaches the sky. Then, another break in the reflection. Not dead ahead, slightly off the port wing, longer than a wave shadow, too straight. Bulock banks left, slowly, deliberately. Again, no sudden movement. The Wellington's shadow slides across the water, barely noticeable. The second U-boat is fully surfaced. Deck crew are visible now, dark figures moving casually, one man leaning against the conning tower, cigarette ember briefly flaring orange. A lookout scans the sky, but his eyes are adjusted to darkness, not moon glare. The Wellington blends into the pale sky behind the moon, like a ghost. This is the moment Bulock lives for, the thin margin where the enemy still believes he is invisible. "Bomb aimer ready," comes the quiet voice. Bulock drops altitude, trading safety for precision. The aircraft skims low enough that individual waves are distinct, rolling hills of silver and black. The German lookout finally sees them. An arm points upward, a shout. Chaos blooms instantly. Men scramble. The deck gun begins to elevate, muzzle flashing as it fires blindly into the sky. Tracers streak past the Wellington, red lines slicing the darkness. "Steady," Bulock says. The U-boat's bow dips as ballast tanks flood. The stern rises, propellers bite water, churning foam, but the dive is sluggish. Diesels coughing, systems lagging. Bulock times it perfectly. Release. Depth charges fall, 4 of them, spaced to trap a submarine that is neither fully surfaced nor fully submerged. The explosion is brutal. The water erupts in a boiling ring. The sea seems to lift, then collapse inward. The Wellington shudders as if struck by a giant fist. For a split second, the moon disappears behind a curtain of spray. When it clears, there is no submarine, only wreckage, only oil, only debris spreading in widening circles like ripples from a stone. The intercom crackles. Someone lets out a breathy, unbelieving laugh. 2, the navigator whispers. 2 U-boats, 1 night, no radar. Bulock does not smile. He turns the aircraft back onto its patrol line, because now something has changed. Somewhere below the waves, German commanders are already realizing that the rules they trusted no longer apply. And in the dark corridors of their submarines, men are listening for sounds that mean death from above. Moonlight, once their shield, has become a spotlight, and Bulock intends to keep flying until the ocean is empty or the fuel is gone. Wing Commander Bulock senses it before anyone says a word. The radio remains silent. No German transmissions, no frantic signals, no warnings passed between submarines. That silence tells him more than intercepted chatter ever could. The U-boat commanders below don't understand what is happening. They know aircraft are present. They do not know how they are being found. And confusion is deadly. Bulock alters course again, this time angling toward a region where convoys recently passed. U-boats will linger there, hoping for stragglers, riding the surface to recharge before dawn forces them down. The moon is still strong, casting a silver road across the Atlantic. Bulock flies parallel to it, keeping the glare behind him, turning his aircraft into a darker shape against a brighter sky. It's an old trick, learned before radar ever existed. "Contact!" the rear gunner calls suddenly. "Starboard side, low, very low." Bulock banks hard. This U-boat is different. It is already beginning to dive. The German commander has learned something, perhaps from the distant thunder of explosions, perhaps from the oil slicks glowing faintly under the moon. The deck is nearly clear, hatches are slamming shut, the bow is angled down with urgency instead of routine. They have seconds. Bulock pushes the Wellington lower, engines roaring louder now. Tracer fire snaps past the fuselage, closer than before. A round punches through fabric and metal somewhere aft, but the aircraft holds. "Hold steady! Hold steady!" The bomb aimer fights the turbulence, lining up a target that is sinking by the second. "Now!" The depth charges release, tumbling into darkness just as the submarine's deck slips beneath the surface. The crew braces. The explosion hits deeper this time, a muffled, concussive blow that shudders the ocean rather than tearing it apart. For a heartbeat, nothing happens. Then the sea boils. A massive surge of air and debris bursts upward, followed by a spreading stain that reflects moonlight like black glass. Wooden fragments surface, metal scraps, a piece of railing. The submarine does not. "Confirmed," the navigator says quietly. Three submarines in one night, by methods German command insists should not work at all. Bulock finally exhales, but only briefly, because now the danger is different. The U-boats that remain are no longer complacent. They are diving faster, firing sooner, watching the sky with panic instead of boredom. The element of surprise is thinning. And Bulock knows there is still one more opportunity left in this night. Fuel is running low. The engines are beginning to sound tired. Dawn is still hours away, but the margin for error has vanished. The fourth contact appears suddenly, almost too suddenly, dead ahead. This U-boat is running on the surface at flank speed, trying to escape the kill zone. Its wake glows white in the moonlight, a brilliant arrow pointing straight to it. The German commander has made a choice. Run. Bulock tightens his grip on the controls. Running only works if your enemy is slower. The Wellington surges forward, closing the distance. Tracers lash out from the U-boat's deck gun, carving bright red scars through the sky. One round cracks through the cockpit canopy, showering glass fragments inside. No one speaks. Bulock lines up the attack with clinical precision, dropping even lower than before. The aircraft skims just above the waves, salt spray streaking across the nose. "Depth charges armed," the bomb aimer says, voice tight. The submarine begins a desperate dive, stern lifting as the bow vanishes. Bulock does not wait for the perfect moment. He creates it. Release! The charges fall in a shallow pattern designed not to trap, but to chase. The ocean detonates. The shock wave slams the Wellington upward, nearly tearing it from the sky. Warning lights flash. An engine coughs, but holds. Below, the sea erupts one final time. When the spray clears, there is no wake, no movement, only a vast spreading oil slick under the moon that has betrayed 4 submarines in a single night. Bulock turns the aircraft for home. Behind him, the crew sits in stunned silence, fully aware that they have just rewritten the rules of the war over the Atlantic.
Wing Commander Bulock keeps the aircraft low, skirting cloud banks to avoid any last-minute surprises. The Bay of Biscay recedes behind them, calm again, as if nothing beneath its surface has changed. Inside the aircraft, the crew finally begins to speak, quietly at first. 4, someone says, barely audible. No radar, another replies, disbelief thick in his voice. The navigator keeps his eyes on the chart, checking and rechecking bearings. 4 attack points marked in tight succession. Any one of them would be enough for a full patrol report. Together, they look like an error. Bulock says nothing. He is already thinking ahead, to the questions, the raised eyebrows, the inevitable skepticism. Coastal Command has lost too many aircraft to overconfidence. Claims are scrutinized. Night victories without electronic detection are viewed with suspicion. Moonlight is not doctrine. Moonlight is coincidence. The English coast finally appears as a darker line against the horizon. The airfield lights flicker into view, blurred by fatigue and salt spray on the canopy. Bulock brings the Wellington in smoothly, easing it onto the runway with the care of a man landing something far more fragile than aluminum and fabric. The engines wind down. Silence floods the aircraft. Ground crew rush forward, drawn by the damage, holes in the fuselage, scorched paint, cracked glass. Someone whistles low when they see the state of the aircraft. Rough night, sir? Bulock climbs down without drama. Busy, he says. In the debriefing room, the smell of strong tea and cigarette smoke hangs in the air. Officers listen as the navigator lays out times, bearings, attack runs. 4 submarines, 4 confirmed destructions, no radar contact, all visual, all under moonlight. There is a pause when he finishes, then another. An intelligence officer clears his throat. You're certain there wasn't radar assistance at any point? Bulock meets his eyes. Positive. A second officer leans back in his chair. 4 in one night is unprecedented. Then write that down, Bulock replies evenly. Silence again, thicker now, because the facts refuse to bend. Reconnaissance later confirms it. Signals go unanswered. German boats failed to report. Oil slicks are spotted by follow-up patrols. Wreckage drifts where Bulock said it would. By morning, the impossible has become undeniable. The report climbs the chain of command, from squadron to group, from group to headquarters. Each desk it crosses adds a new layer of disbelief and unease. If one man with no radar can do this by moonlight, what else has been misunderstood? Across the channel, German naval intelligence begins piecing together its own nightmare. 4 submarines gone in a single patrol sector, no convoy reported, no radar-equipped aircraft detected, no warning, only death from the sky. The official explanation falters. Lookouts are blamed, crews are reprimanded, Orders are issued to dive faster, surface less, trust the night no longer. But the truth is simpler and far more dangerous. The night itself has turned hostile, and Wing Commander Terry Bulock has shown that technology is not always the sharpest weapon in war. Sometimes the deadliest tool is a man who understands what others overlook.
Reports from Bulock's patrol sit on the table, passed from hand to hand. 4 U-boats, 1 night, Moonlight only. Senior officers argue in low voices. Some call it an anomaly, a perfect storm of conditions that will never repeat. Others, quieter but more attentive, recognize something far more unsettling. Bulock is summoned. He stands before them in a plain briefing room, uniform still creased from the night before. No theatrics, no embellishment. He describes exactly what he did and nothing more. How moonlight breaks on waves, how submarines distort reflections, how altitude and approach angle matter more than electronics when the enemy believes he is invisible. One officer interrupts. "So you're saying radar is unnecessary?" Bulock shakes his head. "I'm saying it isn't always decisive." That answer lands harder than any boast, because doctrine has a gravity of its own, and Bulock has just nudged it off balance. Within days, quiet trials begin. Selected crews are instructed to fly without radar assistance on bright nights. Not officially, not publicly, just enough to see if Bulock's results were repeatable. They are. Not 4 in one night, but 1 here, another there. Enough to prove the principle, enough to confirm that German U-boats have grown predictable in their confidence. German commanders, meanwhile, are growing desperate. Messages intercepted from the Bay of Biscay tell a story of fear and confusion. Lookouts report aircraft appearing out of the moon itself. Crews dive at shadows. Deck guns fire at nothing. Patrol efficiency collapses as submarines spend more time submerged, batteries draining, opportunities lost. The Atlantic begins to tilt. Bulock does not become famous overnight. There is no headline, no medal ceremony splashed across newspapers. His contribution is quieter than that, absorbed into manuals, briefings, whispered advice passed from crew to crew. But among Coastal Command pilots, his name spreads fast. Fly the moon like Bulock. Watch the reflections. Trust your eyes. The night stops belonging to the U-boats, and the men inside them know it. German losses in the Biscay climb. Morale cracks. Crews surface less, rush more, make mistakes. The ocean that once hid them now betrays them, reflecting their silhouettes like signatures of guilt. Bulock continues flying, night after night. Not always successful, not always spectacular. War is never that clean. But the myth of the untouchable night submarine is gone, replaced by something worse. Uncertainty. And uncertainty kills faster than fear. Not technology. Expectation. Night patrols are no longer routine. Crews fly with tension sharpened, eyes trained not on instruments alone, but on the sea itself. Navigators learn to read moon angles. Pilots learn when not to maneuver. Bomb aimers learn patience, the kind measured in heartbeats, not seconds. The Bay of Biscay becomes a place of ghosts. German U-boat commanders write in their logs about strange sightings, aircraft that appear without warning, attacks that come without flares or radar pulses. Survivors speak of silver seas that suddenly erupt in fire, of death arriving silently, almost politely, before violence tears everything apart. Berlin demands answers. Naval High Command issues new orders: surface only briefly, dive at the first hint of aircraft, avoid predictable lanes. But these orders carry a cost. Submarines that stay submerged cannot recharge effectively. Crews grow exhausted, engines suffer, attacks on convoys drop. The Atlantic campaign begins to shift, not with a dramatic collapse, but with erosion, one lost opportunity at a time. Bulock watches it from the cockpit. He is not naive enough to believe he has won the war. He has seen too many aircraft fail to return, too many friends vanish into the sea. But he understands something essential. War changes not only through invention, but through insight. And insight spreads. Young pilots ask him questions after briefings. He answers patiently, never claiming ownership. He credits conditions, discipline, teamwork. But they notice what he never says, that he trusted his judgment when doctrine told him not to. That trust saves lives. Months later, Allied convoys move with slightly less fear through Biscay approaches. Losses continue, but the balance is no longer hopeless. Submarines hesitate where they once hunted boldly. The moon keeps rising, but it no longer belongs to the men below. It belongs to the hunters above. Wing Commander Terry Bulock continues flying until the war grinds toward its conclusion. He survives missions that statistics say he shouldn't. He loses men he never forgets. And he never again hears anyone say that a night patrol without radar is pointless, because no one believes that anymore. In post-war analysis, historians will talk about improved radar, better coordination, long-range aircraft, and intelligence breakthroughs. All of it matters. But tucked between those pages is a smaller truth, that in June 1943, one commander proved that certainty can be a liability. 4 submarines lie on the ocean floor, sunk not by a new machine, but by a man who understood how light behaves on water, and how enemies behave when they think they are safe. Moonlight, once a shield for U-boats, became a mirror that revealed them. Bulock never boasts about it. When asked years later, he describes the patrol as fortunate conditions and good crew work. But those who were there remember something else: the calm voice on the intercom, the refusal to rush, the confidence to fly lower when every instinct screamed not to. That night did not end the Battle of the Atlantic, but it bent it. It taught both sides that war does not forgive assumptions, that the environment itself can become a weapon, and that sometimes the most dangerous thing you can believe is that something is impossible. Because on a moonlit night over the Bay of Biscay, impossibility sank 4 times over.